Welcome back everyone, and hopefully in this part 3 video we can go over PAT and finish our NAT, and hopefully not make this too long of a section. And let's start this by getting into PAT, the one we all love, we all need in our savior. So let's go over the steps. So the steps to configure PAT are just like the dynamic NAT steps, except we don't have to define any pool. So step 1, of course, is going to be define our inside address. So we're going to do that with an access list, just like we did previously. And then we have our actual NAT command again. And this time you're just going to do source list and then access list number. And then this is optional, the pool name overload. If you don't have a pool of public IP addresses, you could just type in interface and then overload. And I put that in there to show that you can do this with a pool of public IPs if that's what you have, or you can just do a single interface. So the full command, and let me clean this up a little bit, would be IPNAT inside source list, access list, and then it'd be interface, and then your outside interface, so maybe a serial connection in our labs, and then the key command overload. So you can have either or, a pool name or just a single outside interface. Because for most small and medium-sized businesses, sometimes redundancy isn't thought about because they don't want to pay 2 times for internet connection. In our bigger enterprises, yes, it maybe definitely is common to see redundancy like that, what they call dual homed connection. But really, again, another important thing to show here is that this is the same command we've been using. The key word here is overload. This is what enables that PAT function. That's what enables it to do port address translations instead of just that standard one-to-one NAT mapping private to public. Now we're bringing in the port numbers to create unique sockets to allow one public IP to be used for many private IPs. And then of course our last steps, define the interfaces, like we've been doing in every single configuration. So again, create the access list as we've already seen in the past videos. See which inside interfaces you have to define, then define them with an access list. Too easy, right? And then of course we have our NAT command. So here we're just gonna do a show IP interface brief command to see which one is going to be our outside interface. Outside interface is going to be the interface facing the WAN or internet, and that's going to have our public IP. So the command here is going to be IPNAT inside, and then you have an option here. We're going to put source, and then list. This is going to be the access list we use to define our inside addresses. And then you have 2 options, remember, either define one interface or still that pool of public IPs to use. And here we're just going to do an interface because we only have one interface out to the internet. So command will be interface and then define which interface that is. And then that keyword again, overload. That's what enables PAT, that keyword overload. And then of course, identify the interfaces. If you missed our last video, just go through it real quick. Fast Ethernet 01 is facing the LAN, which is our inside network. Serial 001 is going to be our outside because that's going to be where our public IP sits, the one that makes the connections out to the internet for us, outside. Okay, let's take a breath, right? Just went through a lot of configuration for static, dynamic, and PAT. You can see the similarities between them all. They all have, with please dynamic and PAT, you have to define your inside addresses, and then you have your NAT command. And then of course you always define which is inside, which is outside. Now let's get into verification. So the most important command here that you're going to use for NAT verification during translations, right? If you want to see what's happening right now on the wire, is going to be show IP NAT translations, which is going to show you that NAT table, which gives you your inside global, which is going to be your router's public IP. And here we can see we're doing PAT because we're using the same IP address for translation, but have different inside addresses. So you can see here the port numbers for our inside global and inside local are matching. So we have our unique socket here, and this port number is going to match this inside global socket. And same with this IP address, completely different IP address, probably in a completely different subnet with its own unique port number that gets matched to our inside global. And then you see they're both making connections out to different web servers, which is going to be our destination address. And you can see here that, again, the destination addresses don't change, even though they're called outside local and outside global. Same. Another one is going to be show IP translations verbose. This is just going to give a lot more output. I mean, you're seeing the same thing. This is telling you that it's TCP. This is just telling you maybe the MAC addresses, when this connection was made. Really, I don't know what the rest of this information is, but it's just a command you should know about in case they ask you on the exam. Then we have show IP NAT statistics, and this is going to give you information on your inside and outside interfaces, which pool you're using, the start of your pool, your end of the pool, total addresses in the pool, just a lot of information. The important thing to see here is this is going to tell you what your outside and inside interfaces are. So this could be a command that you use to be like, okay, why is my NAT not working? Let me see if I actually defined my inside and outside interfaces. And if you see nothing under inside interfaces, that means they weren't defined. You can see all the hits, meaning everything that's been translated. Okay, and then this is more of a troubleshooting, not a verification command, but if you want to clear the translations, you can do the clear IP NAT command, and then you see all the different options here. Definitely in the lab environment, this is useful when we want to clear translations, maybe to replace a static NAT statement. And I'll show you that in our upcoming labs. And then we have debug IP NAT. Again, the debug command really just good for that sandbox lab environment. If you do this on a production router that may be being used for hundreds of users that are all doing connections, maybe doing heavy connections like a file transfer, debug command you may not want to do, especially as it's this broad, just debug any NAT statement. So, but it is a good troubleshooting step if you don't have to worry about CPU overutilization on your real world production router. Okay, and that's going to do it for this section. So I want to thank everyone for viewing. I hope you learned something about NAT. I hope it wasn't too confusing with all the terminology and the different types. I do remember being a student back maybe 8 years ago learning this, and this was a section I definitely struggled on. So please take your time, maybe watch it at half speed or watch it twice at 1.25 speed. This really comes together when you can figure this yourself and you see the translations happening and it starts to make sense in your head. So really, it's important that you go over the next two videos that we're going to do with our NAT labs and do them with us. Download EvenG and let's get going. So stay tuned, and again, thank you for viewing.